All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 3. That is right, week number 3 of your 9443 class, which is your academic libraries class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin, and what we are going to do today is we are going to have a quick state of the course update. And after we do our state of the course update, what we are going to do is I'm going to soapbox a little bit on an article that I'm also going to link in the announcement so that you can read the article yourself. But the article does talk a little bit about the current standing of, how many academic librarians are tenure track, how many academic librarians are considered faculty versus staff, the whole 9 yards. And those are things that I want you all to be aware of. In fact, if you look at your final assignment prompt, I'm talking a little bit about that dynamic there because I do want you all to kind of have the sense as to what type of academic library you want to work in and what type of academic library job you want to have if you go into academic libraries. So having said all that, yes, this article might even be something that you might want to use as you are writing your final paper and that sort of thing. So we are going to, again, I'm going to go through that article and kind of soapbox on it. I'm going to go down, read it, and just look at the points of it, and just give my feedback on it as I'm guiding you all through it. This will probably be a 25-minute check-in video, but again, you can speed them up. I hope you've already sped this one up, and I've taught you all how to speed it up, so let's get into it. The first thing that you need to know is that we are not going to have a check-in video next week because you will need to be in attendance for our sync session next week. We will have a sync session next Tuesday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Adjust for your time zone, and I will be sending out reminders of that, so don't worry, okay? I will be sending out reminders, but just know that attending the sync sessions is, you do get graded for that. That is part of your grade, and I do want you all at these sync sessions because, quite frankly, I want my speakers to have an audience. So if you have forgotten which sync session it is going to be, then we are going to go into announcements. I believe it is our community college sync session, but let me just double check myself so that I'm not leading y'all down the wrong path. Yes. September the 16th, we will talk about community college librarianship, and we will be speaking with Mike Crumpton, who has written a book on community college librarianship, even though he is at UNC Greensboro. But he's written a book on community college librarianship, and he is a former community college librarian. Also, we will be speaking to 2 community college librarians as well on that panel who are currently community college librarians. That includes Brady Cross, who went from a 4-year college to a community college. He is going to talk a little bit about that. And then Sabrina Dick in Alabama is actually at a historically black college that is also a community college, and part of what she will talk about will cover that, okay? So again, no check-in video next week, but you do need to be prepared to join us for that sync session. Other things that I want you all to be aware of that are on the horizon is you do just have your week 3 discussion board prompt due this weekend, so September 14th, this Sunday. That's going to be due, but then also just know that next Sunday, in addition, so a week from this coming Sunday, next Sunday, in addition to having your week 4, your week 4 governance discussion board prompt, you're also going to have to turn in your review of an academic library website. And turning that in is actually going to be a discussion board post because I want you all to be able to see each other's work once you all have turned that in. This is going to be a form of peer-to-peer learning, so that's why you're doing it as discussion boards. Once everybody has turned theirs in, I will invite you all to look at each other's work to kind of see, okay, this makes a good academic library website, this makes a bad academic library website, and you can visit the websites and so forth and so on. That is something you want to be aware of as you are pursuing academic library jobs or just getting a feel for academic librarian work. You do want to be able to navigate these websites, see what features they have in common and those sorts of things. And so that assignment is to help with that. And so I hope that the gist of that is understood. Also, by the way, the little article that I'm going to be going through, because we don't have a check-in video next week, I'm usually not on topic anyway. Usually my check-in videos are not related to the topic of the module. It's just stuff that I do to engage you all. But having said that, the classification of these academic librarians, that does fall into governance. So this would be something that would have fit the topic next week if I had waited on it until next week, which I forgot honestly, about the sync sessions, I was like, okay, I could do this next week, and then I realized we don't have a sync session next week, so let's go ahead and do it we don't have a check-in video next week, so let's go ahead and look at that this week. So that is the logic there, okay? So that's pretty much all you have to know right now. You all are doing fine with the discussions and that sort of thing. I have the first 2 weeks of discussion boards graded in this class. Please know that once October gets here, or even mid-September or late September, but definitely in October, I won't be grading nearly as fast. I apologize for that. But right now, really all I'm doing is grading discussion board prompts and that sort of thing. But come the end of September and into October, that's when I get into a lot of my other work with the university, including admissions work, advising work, and then also I will have actual assignments to grade and not just discussion board prompts to grade. And so when I'm actually grading papers and grading projects and that sort of thing, then things start taking a little while. So just be prepared for the grading to slow down. But as of right now, I have been able to grade pretty quickly just because of what's been on my plate and in front of me the past few days. But again, that's going to change, but we can wait until that changes before we get into the meat and potatoes of the change and that sort of thing. So having said that, all right, let's go ahead and get into this article. Take a break right now if you'd like to, and we'll get into it. Paul. All right, so again, I am going to go ahead and also put the link to this article in with this announcement for this check-in video so that you can review this yourself if you want. And again, this might offer you a little bit of guidance as you are doing your final paper. So by all means, this might be something that you want to tuck away. If you look at your final paper, which is a pilot assignment, and I've explained that before, but if you look at your final paper, you will see how this, if you look at the prompt for that, you will see how this is kind of on, it's on topic it's on topic with, this is on topic with what is coming up on the horizon with that final paper of yours. So this is actually from spring 2023. The once and future faculty status of academic librarians at the University of Virginia. Hold on one second. Okay, and to be honest with you, part of the reason why I took that pause was because I actually did think this was something from 2025 because it showed up in my Google News that way, and so I apologize for that, but this is still an important enough, and I'm showing you this so that you can kind of see that I'm not making that up. It says June 13th, so I actually thought that this was June 13th, 2025 because the year wasn't there, but as you can see, this is from 2023, but I still think it's very helpful information. Okay, so we're still going to go through it. But this could be a little out of date because the budget cuts that are coming to academic libraries from the federal level, those are going to impact this type of information. So this might be a little out of date, but it's still a good starting place, and it's still good for looking conceptually at what we're talking about today. So many academic librarians in the United States have long been considered accustomed to a role in their college or university as faculty members. In a 2017 survey conducted by the Association of College and Research Libraries, which is ACRL. First of all, if you are going to be an academic librarian, you do need to know what ACRL is, and that it's a division of the American Library Association. So ACRL is a division of ALA, and ACRL, by the way, is different from ARL. So ACRL, the Association of College and Research Libraries, is different from ARL, the Association of Research Libraries. The Association of Research Libraries is its own independent organization made up mostly of academic libraries, but there are a few public libraries in there, such as New York Public Library, which is considered a research library. And these ARL libraries are basically seen as your cream of the crop libraries, the elite libraries, your Chapel Hills, your Mizzous, your Dukes, your Harvards, your Yales. They are in ARL, but you will not often find other institutions that are not your cream of the crop institutions included in ARL, because they do have to pay a fee, and it's invite only and all that sort of thing. So know that there's a difference between ARL and ACRL, and you can visit arl.org in order to learn about that elitist organization. Okay, so a 2017 survey conducted by ACRL found that librarians at roughly half of academic libraries in the United States were categorized as faculty members. So what that means is for the most part, roughly half, with academic libraries, roughly half of these librarians at these who have librarian rank at those who have librarian rank at roughly half of academic libraries in the United States are classified as faculty. Now, there are going to be smaller colleges. A lot of times they classify their librarians as staff. I don't know if community colleges were included in the survey or not, but usually at community colleges, librarians are also categorized as staff. But it's different wherever you go, and some of the things that this can affect, by the way, are some of the benefits. Like, for instance, if you are faculty, you are probably going to get more vacation time, more days off than staff members are. If you are faculty, you might be overtime exempt, whereas staff usually is not, meaning that staff can get overtime pay, but faculty a lot of times can't. If you are classified as staff, usually you do not have an obligation to publish or present and that sort of thing, whereas if you are faculty, usually you will have to. So those are some of the nuances of that, and so I do want you all to be aware of that. Also, it says here, roughly 1/5 of libraries categorizing librarians as non-tenure track faculty members. So if you are a non-tenure track faculty member, and I believe that is the classification at UMKC. I'm 99% certain that the UMKC academic librarians who have librarian rank are they are not tenure track, and so yes, they have to do things like publish and present, but they don't have a tenure decision weighing on that. But they do have promotion standards weighing on that. I believe it's the same at Mizzou, but don't quote me on that. Again, my office is at UMKC, and I know librarians at UMKC, but I don't really know librarians at Mizzou. So I apologize for that. But if you are a non-tenure track librarian, then a lot of times, then that means that, yes, you still have to publish and present, but your obligations with that can be a lot of times a little bit easier. Like, you might just have to present maybe even on campus a lot of times. Maybe that can... You might not have to do as much for the profession. You may not have to do as much traveling, that sort of thing. So that's where the difference comes in. When you are tenure track, a lot of times you have to do a lot of things externally outside of the library. It's not always the case. In fact, where I used to work in Coastal Carolina, that wasn't the case. But at most academic libraries where they are tenure track, yes, they have to do external work to gain tenure, okay? So I want you all to be aware of those things. So then as we go down further here, faculty status, whether on or off the tenure track, typically affords, and this is again what I want you all to be aware of, that affords librarians an opportunity to participate in the governance of their institutions. If you have faculty status, you can also teach 4-credit classes at some institutions, and I did that at Coastal Carolina. I actually taught a 1-credit class that I had some students, especially athletes, take. And you can serve as primary investigators on grants. If you are a staff member, you are not going to be a PI on a grant. You can have other things such as flexibility in your schedule. A lot of times you have more flexibility if you're faculty and those sorts of things. And then, as it says here, librarians who are non-tenure track faculty status oftentimes do not face the same pressures of publish or perish and things of that nature. So those are things that I want you all to be aware of. I'm going to kind of skip down because if you're interested, you can read this on your own. But again, these are things that I really want you all to just be conscious of as you are thinking about hitting the job market. Don't get me wrong. A lot of times you will just have to get the job that's available. It's not a great job market out there anymore. There was a little while where it was actually an employee's market, and they were just trying to just hire people. But now we are back with the budget cuts and everything and eliminating positions. We are back in a situation where it is now, again, the employers who have the advantage on the job market. So I want you all to be aware of that. But yes, be mindful of, okay, do you want that pressure of publish or perish? Do you want that pressure? If you would have gone to a tenure track tenure track R1 like UNC Greensboro, where I used to work, that is a place where you had that publish or perish pressure. And actually one of my coworkers who I liked a lot in the cataloging department over at UNC Greensboro when I was there, he was denied tenure. and it crushed him because he thought he had put in a lot of good, solid work for 6 years, and yet he was denied tenure. And yeah, it was devastating for him because he had kind of laid roots in that city and everything. So those are things that I want you all to be aware of. And if you do want a situation where you are just working your 8 hours and going home for the most part, then you might want to look for a position at a community college or a small college where you are considered staff instead of faculty. But again, with that staff designation, a lot of times that means you're getting less vacation time and less pay. So keep all of that in the forefront of your mind. All right, now again, I am mostly just, instead of reading this verbatim, because if you want to, you can do that yourself. You all are not 5 years old. You do not need Dr. Jace to actually read this article to you. But what I am doing is, so I'm going to put the link in, and if you want to read it yourself, you can. But what I'm doing is I'm pulling out some highlights and things like that I want to kind of emphasize and make sure to stress, because I want you all to be mindful of these things. So another piece that I want you all to be aware of is this right here. There are claims that the research reflected in the scholarly library literature is typically descriptive of library services and less rigorous than in most academic disciplines, and that the promotion process is also less rigorous, based as it is primarily on job performance and lacking external review. So here's what I want you all to kind of take from this right here, okay? So there are snobs in academia. As you all know, there are snobs in academia. I don't think that that is any secret to you all. But here's what I want you all to realize is that there's going to potentially be a little bit of jarring at you, or faculty members jarring at you, or there's going to be a little bit, maybe a little bit of contempt that you see, that you'll see from faculty members and so forth. When you are talking about teaching faculty, when you are in, usually librarians on tenure track are still not considered teaching faculty. When you are considered teaching faculty, okay, in those moments, those professors with the PhDs and who are expected to do the really rigorous research and not just write things in trade publications about, descriptions of services that are offered and that sort of thing. Let's say, for instance, let me see how I can put this. So let's say that you are a chemistry professor. So you're you have a PhD in chemistry and you teach in the chemistry department. All right, if you also have to do research, which you likely do if you're a faculty member on the tenure track, if you are doing research in chemistry, the research that you are doing in chemistry is not going to be some trade publication fodder where you are describing a process, describing some sort of process of how you reached some sort of result or something like that. You are actually doing some sort of real research related to chemistry that's going to have a thorough peer review process, and you are probably going to have to publish in a very well-respected chemistry journal, okay? That's what chemistry professors usually have to do. Librarians who are on the tenure track, in contrast, are not usually doing that high-level research, doing sample sizes, worrying about statistics, inferential statistics, by the way, not descriptive statistics, but inferential statistics. They are not doing that sort of thing. When you are a librarian, a lot of times what these librarians are getting their tenure on is not that heavy duty, involved research that you really should have a PhD to be competent in doing. Librarians, first of all, usually don't have PhDs, and most librarians who do have PhDs do not have PhDs in LIS. They have PhDs in other disciplines like history or anthropology or something like that. Okay? But if you are doing the LIS research, a lot of times that is just, first of all, a lot of times it's descriptive statistics versus inferential statistics. And if you don't know what I mean by that, in a nutshell, descriptive statistics cannot be generalized over populations, whereas inferential statistics can be. Okay, that's in the social science realm. So that doesn't really come into play with chemistry, but it might come into play with social science, sociology, criminology, those sorts of things. Okay. A lot of librarians are reaching tenure without publishing in the most selective journals related to library science, or LIS. So, like, for instance, some of the most selective journals that we have in our field are Public Library Quarterly, Academic Library Quarterly, and there's another one that escapes my mind right now. But Public Library Quarterly and Academic Library Quarterly, I can use those as examples, and I can say that a lot of the pieces in those journals, a lot of them actually do have inferential statistics and go through a research study method and that sort of thing. But then a lot of those things are actually also just think pieces, and a lot of those things are actually just things that rely on descriptive statistics, and they capture the success of certain programs or certain services or that sort of thing. So there's a big difference there. And I say all of that to say that there are going to be faculty members at a lot, especially at R1s and these higher level institutions, that still look down their noses at the academic librarians who have tenure or who have tenure track status. They still look down at them and still don't see them as real researchers, don't see them as real faculty members. And that's something that I just would have to encourage you. You can't take it personal. When you encounter people like that, you just have to realize that they're on their thing. They think they're better than you because, oh, they've got a PhD and they've done this, that, and the third. They think they changed the world, blah, blah, blah. They really haven't. But, you know, that's something that if you go into that type of environment, you can't afford to be sensitive about that. But what you can do is still look to build those bonds with faculty members, show faculty members what you can do for them and what you can do for their students. And if they see that you're good at research still, there's going to be some respect that they're going to show you. And then this piece right here, just kind of plays into what I was just saying, so I'm highlighting this. For librarians, faculty status is less important as a way of placing librarians on the same level as other faculty members, because again, at a lot of institutions, they're just not going to see you that way, and I'm sorry for that, but that's just going to be how it is. But it's less about placing librarians on the same level as other faculty members, but more it's important as far as securing a means for librarians to have a right to participate in governance at their institutions. So when they talk about participating in governance at their institutions, I had tenure track status when I was a librarian at Coastal Carolina University, but I definitely was not doing research there because Coastal Carolina isn't even a research institution. It's a comprehensive teaching institution. Yes, it is a 4-year institution, but it's not a research institution, okay? So they do have faculty members that do research, but they're not putting out the research in the top tier journals usually and that sort of thing. They're not usually the most heavily cited researchers and that sort of thing. But all that to say, when I was at Coastal Carolina, I actually served on committees, okay? I served in the university senate, actually. We had 2 university senate seats that were dedicated to librarians, and so myself and my coworker Scott, who was one of the library IT guys, we were the faculty senate representatives for the library on Coastal Carolina University's faculty senate, okay? So I got to participate in that governance. If you are not tenure track, a lot of times you will not be able to participate in the governance, and then rarely, if you are at a place where librarians are considered staff instead of faculty, rarely, I'm not going to say never, but rarely does that translate into an opportunity to be involved in university governance. So if you want librarians to have a voice in university governance, and I do recommend that you go somewhere where they do, if you're serious about your librarian future, then by all means, go to a place where librarians have faculty status. No, it doesn't matter to you. And I would also say, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I will also say I don't think that governance is really quite as important. Shared governance, I should say, isn't quite as important in community colleges as it is in 4-year universities. So if you're going somewhere where librarians are classified as staff, I would recommend going somewhere like a community college where shared governance isn't that important anyway, right? All right, so after that, there's a lot of historical setup, and I'm actually skipping that again because I'm already at 25 minutes of this video. I need to make it, I need to cap it at 30, or at least try to cap it at 30, so I didn't want to go through all that. You can read it yourself, but I wanted to scroll down, and I scrolled down to here because this is important. So with library instruction at UVA largely dependent on requests from individual university faculty, which is going to be the case, by the way, a lot of your, if you are on tenure track as a librarian, then a lot of your teaching And usually when you're on tenure track, even as a librarian, your tenure track is going to usually be 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% service, okay? So your teaching comes from when faculty members request that you come teach one-shot sessions for their classes, usually when you do library instruction and that sort of thing for their sessions. That's usually how that works and how you get your teaching credits. Your service credits can be your service on university committees, on library committees, so forth and so on. And then the research is when you have to figure out publications, that sort of thing. But a lot of things get pigeonholed into the research, as we are about to see in a second here. So again, with library instruction at UVA, largely dependent on requests from individual university faculty, few members of the library staff could definitively say that they devoted 60% or more of their time to teaching. Yeah, that's usually not going to be the case. A lot of times what you have to do in order to get that 60% to be there would be that you would have to count your prep time, and you would have to artificially inflate your prep time, because the truth of the matter is, yes, you'll notice this. On your first academic librarian job, if you do research and instruction, if you do instruction, then one thing that you're going to notice is that your first year, the prep for the instruction is going to take a lot of time, and I do mean a lot of time. Prep when you are first starting takes a lot of time, but one thing that you all are going to see is that by year 3, your prep is taking almost no time, okay? So once you get into that situation, then your teaching is not really going to be 60% of your time unless you're artificially inflating it. But you need to be more so usually in the 40%, not the 60%. Now, none devoted 60% or more of their time to research. So that's the other piece of that. When you're talking about research, yes, that can include research that you're doing on behalf of students, research that you're doing on behalf of faculty members. But what it's really talking about there is the research that you are doing yourself. You're publishing and presenting about services offered, or in how successful or unsuccessful they were, and those sorts of things, okay? So when you look at that, this is the important part of the money part right here. However, the Provost's office did accept the wide range of activities that the Promotion Review Board listed as characterizing teaching and research. And some of those things will include such things as, especially with research, this is important, it can often include such things as building research tools, putting together research guides, including LibGuides, and you all know from 7314 you've had to put a LibGuide to get together, putting together bibliographies, and then also putting together exhibits and that sort of thing. So when you're thinking, if you're asking yourself, well, what does teaching even mean when you're a librarian? Or what does research even mean when you are a tenure track academic librarian? This can give you some insight on that. And actually, especially since we're almost at time, I am going to say that that was really what I wanted you all to get out of that anyway. You know, you can read on and see how there was a thing done to kind of produce kind of a separate librarian track for success as far as gaining tenure and that sort of thing at UVA specifically. There are other colleges that have done that, but there are plenty of colleges that have not. So that, again, is something to be mindful of. And these are fair questions for you to ask when you are on the interview. But I certainly did not want this video to take longer than 30 minutes. And again, I hope you sped it up. So we are going to need to end it here, and I will see you all in the discussion boards. My name is Dr. Jace, and please know that if you get on the tenure track, it is not a sprint, it is more of a marathon race. Jace race. Got my rhyme, now I can sleep well. You all take care, and again, I will see you in the discussion boards. Bye-bye.